Separated by cosmic cabinets, Brandon, Paul, and Logan are broadcasting the Breakdown Podcast live using their telepathic powers. My name's Brandon Miracle, broadcasting live from the Break Room Arcade. If you look south of me in the video version, you'll see the wonderful face of Paul Anderson broadcasting live from the Break Room Clubhouse. If you look to the right of me in the video version, you'll see the wonderful, inquisitive, lovely face of Logan Welliver broadcasting live from the Break Room Bedroom. This is episode 26 of the Breakdown Podcast, recorded live on August 13th, 2018. The way I remembered that is because it's the day after my 1-year wedding anniversary.
Well, congratulations!
Thank you.
You're old.
I know.
Yeah, well, you know, I'll say this. If I got married a year ago, yesterday would have also been my 1-year anniversary.
Wow, Logan, you were really bringing the solid facts to the table.
Yeah, man. I just take them as they come. You know how it is.
See, if it were me and I got married a year ago yesterday, I'd have already had 5 kids by now. So step up the game, man.
Wow. How do you do that? How do you fit that in?
Magic.
So you have 4 at once.
Oh, okay. Wait. But even if it's a year, that's a 9-month gestation period.
You're making assumptions about when the children were born.
You're
Or
assuming that I didn't adopt
has.
4 of them at once.
Or how many wives? How many wives are you gonna have? Paul?
There are a lot of variables to that discussion. We will not
like
get
how
into
you
them, though.
We just did.
well,
We just did.
On a very minor scale. Hey, everybody in the chat. We got Conman in here, and Intense Snow, and Dream Drop, our lovely mods. Always a pleasure to have you guys in there. We got a lot to talk about today. I'm still trudging my way through Community. Played Secret of Mana for the very first time yesterday, actually. Enjoying that a lot. Paul, you went and saw Paddington 2.
I bought Paddington 2.
You went and bought Paddington 2.
Wow.
Yes.
Big mood. Big mood.
And Logan, you saw 8th grade.
I did say 8th grade. I can't wait to talk about it.
So, with all that in mind, I'll just get right into my movies and TV, which amounts to one whole thing this week.
One really good thing, though.
Community. I am 4 episodes into season 3 right now, and really enjoying myself. Every episode's a treat. Every episode is inventive, innovative, fresh, and hysterical. I love the kind of arc that they play up in season 2, where they kind of slowly make Pierce the antagonist of the group. The D&D episode.
Which one's Pierce? Which one's Pierce?
The old man.
Okay,
Chevy
so
Chase.
Chevy Chase. Okay, that's what I thought.
So, the D&D episode is probably one of my favorites because pretty much the entire episode is spent sitting around a table, yet it's so engaging because of how they describe, you know, what they're doing in D&D. It's like sitting and having your own session. I think they really captured that well. So that was probably my favorite episode of season 2. Though Paintball episode 2 is a close second. That was another great one. So season 2 of Community gets an A+ from me, and the few episodes I've seen of season 3 so far are already an A++. Good stuff.
Good stuff. I've watched some Community. I haven't watched a ton, but some of those earlier episodes. I know the later seasons kind of get a little iffy, so I've heard. But some of those earlier episodes, top notch.
Season
really
1 is like so normal, and then season 2 just becomes a Dan
They
Harmon
figured out
show.
what they were doing.
Yeah.
It feels like Rick and Morty to me in the kinds of ridiculous adventures that they go on.
Yep.
You could definitely see how some of that translated into Rick and Morty later on. So, loving it.
This is very quickly going to become my excuse to watch through it again, because it's been on my list of things that I'm starting to forget a lot of it, and so it's been back in my mind hey, I really need to rewatch Community, but you're making me yearn for it. I need it.
Such a good show.
I know.
That's all I did for movies and TV this week.
Wow. That's
a good thing to do with your week, though.
Well, I mean, okay, I'll say this. Sometimes it's nice to have a slow week in one section or another because you end up picking up in other stuff. So maybe like one week you watch like a ton of TV or movies, and then the other week you're playing a ton of video games. I definitely was heavier on the video games this week, but not by much. Not by much. I've been doing a lot of creative things. So But yes.
Well, Paul, why don't you go into what you watched this week?
Well, first off, I'm going to start off with Infinity War. I've had it for like 2 weeks now, and I have not had a moment to sit down and watch it.
Oh, did you buy the digital version?
Yeah. So last night I finally sat down and decided it's time. And it was a nice refresher because like the first time through, there's a lot of little things that like I missed in some of the character interactions and whatnot, like just very little subtle details that, you know, they did such a good job of the characterization and relationships in this movie. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, good movies are almost always better the second time around because, you know, they're rich with detail, nuances that, I mean, you can't catch on your first time around.
You can't digest it all at once.
No, you start by digesting the story, right? Like what's happening in the movie. And then as time goes on, you're able to explain why the movie made you feel the way that it did. Maybe it's those specific shots that you didn't really internalize until your second or third time through. I mean, that's certainly the case with one of my favorite movies, Call Me by Your Name. I've seen that, you know, countless times at this point, and it gets better and better every time. I should write a book on that movie, which is based on the book.
Yeah, this time through, like, especially the team that ended up on Titan, I just love Tony Stark and how, like, clearly annoyed by everyone he is. Like, he's just like a perpetual eye roll that entire section of the movie, and it's amazing.
He's got a, man. You ever seen a character with such a massive ego? You know, like,
yeah, Tony Stark on Titan.
He's basically Vegeta, but a real man.
Right, like it's.
Well, you pair him up with Doctor Strange, who's also just like a massive ego.
Yeah, but Doctor Strange comes off differently. Though I haven't seen the movie, and I'm not actually. That's one of the like few MCU films that I have not seen, and I think it's still on Netflix. So maybe I'll watch that this week. But I've also said that about other movies before.
That's not all you watched, Paul.
Yeah, so same time I bought Infinity War, I bought Paddington 2. And so I also finally made time to sit down and watch that. And I didn't think they'd be able to make a movie more delightful than the first one, but they succeeded.
It's better than the first one. How did that happen?
That's a good feeling. I mean, it feels... I haven't seen either of the films. But that kind of happened with like Toy Story, in my opinion. I think, and you could argue that the second one might not be as good as the first one
for Toy Story.
But for Toy Story,
excuse me, Toy Story 2 is infinitely better than the first one.
Okay, well then you would certainly agree with what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Then, because I thought the third movie was fantastic as well, and those movies in at least certain ways got better with each successive film. And so yeah, it's rare to find a franchise or, you know, any sort of movie that gets a sequel that it's like, oh man, this is better. What happened here? And not just like, oh, the previous movie sucked and then this movie's okay. It's like, this movie's really good. How is this movie better? So
there's one scene very early on that, like, you put Paddington up against people who are just very, like, stern and resolute, not really showing very much emotion other than, like, being hostile. And you see in a very short time, Paddington just completely turned, like, the entire mood around. And that's the thing that, like, got me.
Yeah.
Like, it was the most adorable thing.
That might have been my favorite part of the movie. That's an incredible just sequence of events. If I think I know what you're talking about.
You probably do. And like the rest of the movie is just like jolly around that, but that particular part is like the scene that like made this better than the first one for me.
I would implore anyone who hasn't seen either Paddington movie to sit down, set some time aside, and watch them, and you will just feel good when they're over.
You owe it to yourself.
Andre Seegers on Game Explain will will tweet quite consistently about Paddington. You'll find out because he also adores those movies. How about that? That's like 2 straight weeks of cuddly bear movies.
We need more of them.
We don't deserve.
Welcome to the cuddly bear room arcade.
We need our own like Build-A-Bear workshop bears.
I want more live action Pooh Bear like now.
I would hope that they wouldn't stop there and spend some more time with the actual characters in another movie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great the angle they took on this movie, but I want more. And obviously, there's more stories to tell. And you can always make more stories. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it for me this week.
That brings us to you, Logan.
So I really liked it. Like a ton.
You cut out a bit there. What'd you say?
I really liked 8th grade.
Okay.
Really liked it a lot. And it was such a weird film to watch because I was uncomfortable the whole time. And I think
just like 8th grade.
Yeah. And so most of it was, wow, I see a lot of my 8th grade self in this. You know, those horrifying like social situations and trying to make friends. It's really scary.
Who has friends in 8th grade?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is like I was homeschooled through the 7th grade. So 8th grade year was my first year in a public school setting, which is very
good time to jump in.
Yeah. But I think it worked out. I never made any terribly close friends through like high school, at least through my actual school, right? Most of my friends were from church and all that other stuff. So again, I saw myself a lot in this film. I really liked how they kept revisiting this like motif of here's a situation in which this 8th grade girl, Kayla, is going to have a really rough time. There's only going to be music playing, and it's going to go on for a little bit too long, you know? But it adds to that whole feeling of like, she's really uncomfortable, and you have to be too. And I thought that was a really good way of expressing you know, what she was going through.
Yeah, they very successfully put you into her shoes, and you experience that right through her perspective.
Yeah. And then even okay, so you know, just recently started doing a whole lot more YouTube stuff, and then also started doing stuff outside of a podcast, outside of just having a conversation, actually doing some editing. And it was really interesting. The very first thing you see before you see like any visuals is you hear that Apple, the photo booth sound, right?
The recording sound effect.
And then she records, hi everybody, Kayla here. Like, yeah. Well, I'm gonna say things, and I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I'm gonna act like I'm talking about things that I know I like talking about, like this. And well, I'm actually just internalizing this and trying to figure all this stuff about myself. And I was like,
Gucci.
I felt it. It just, again, this movie communicates all of its ideas very clearly without being too upfront about them. Like, it was never like explicitly saying that like she was uncomfortable, but everything was communicating that she was. And then all of a sudden weird things are happening or bad things are happening. But she finds herself in very unfortunate situations, in other situations where I just want to beat someone's butt.
There'll be situations
because they're being
with
a dummy
her,
on screen.
There'll be situations with her where she'll say or do things, especially with her father, that in the moment might not make sense, especially to an adult. But I think that clearly shows you her motivations, and that she's not always sure what her motivations are.
Oh, dude, I think that's another thing is like 8th graders don't know what life is.
Yeah.
They're so unsure. It's all fake. And I think that part of growth near the end of the film where she kind of realizes that it's just give it time, right? Things change. You're going to change, and keep your head up and learn to love yourself, learn to like yourself, because that's infinitely more important than, getting the love and adoration of your peers, which is also important to a degree, being recognized by your peers. But if you're just confident in yourself, people are attracted to that. And 8th graders are shallow, so you shouldn't prioritize the opinions of 8th graders.
Despite being called 8th grade, I think this movie had a great depiction specifically of high schoolers. I've never seen a movie kind of present high schoolers like this. They're not like the typical snobby brats that are going to look down on you. There's one character in specific that almost in a way looks up to Kayla despite being younger than her, or they're on an equal playing field.
Right.
I don't know.
Oh,
that resonated with me.
Right. And then there's that phone call where Kayla's all nervous and she's like, God, I can't believe her. She's actually talking to me. This girl's so cool. And then she reassures him like, no. It's no big deal at all. Like, I gave you my phone number for a reason so we could have these conversations. Because obviously, like, this high school girl, I can't remember the name of the character, but she was very, very much in the business of lifting this very insecure 8th grader up. And seeing the worth in her without necessarily Kayla having to prove anything. And then also and vice versa, you had the other side of high school where you had this kid who was kind of coming on to her, and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And if I was there, that kid would get a fist to the face, because like, dude, she's 15. No, she's not. She's younger. I think I get it mixed up because the actress, I believe, is 15. But obviously, if she's in 8th grade, that would make her 12, 13, 14. I think it's 13. I think
how old are kids these days?
I think it's 13
14 is freshman year, so it's like 13 going on 14.
Yeah.
So she was around that age. And like, again, the maturity difference between like somebody coming out of middle school and somebody who's been through high school mostly, that's a big jump. Same with like high school to the end of college, right? Just a big jump. And there's just, man, it just made me so uncomfortable. And then but that's what it was supposed to do, because these are the things that a lot of 8th graders will experience. And then I loved how also rooted it was in modern life. You have this 8th grade girl just constantly looking into her phone, right?
And they don't like shy away from showing you what she's looking at most of the time.
I was wondering, because I thought it was really significant. I thought it was very significant because there's going to be tons of maybe 8th graders, and high school kids who are going to go see this movie, and they're going to see a ton of themselves in it, because that's what modern life is. And I don't think there's been a movie that has stressed that point so boldly and blatantly in your face. Like, she was always on her phone. She made everything about her phone. And then as she started to hang out with people, she was on her phone less over time. She was like, did you notice that? Like, later on in the movie, she just had her phone.
Yeah, you're right. That's a layer of the film that hadn't even occurred to me until now.
Yeah.
There are people outside of my phone. They exist. They're real.
Like, and I don't know how much of that was intentional. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but like, when I'm with people, I just tend to look at my phone less naturally, you know. And then I think I'm also pretty conscious about it as well. And if I'm in a good conversation, like almost never during these podcasts am I ever even tempted to look at my phone. You know, sometimes there's been a few times where I looked at my phone and be like, okay, but then I usually, you know, set it aside and I don't look at it until afterwards.
Well, I think at that age, especially, like, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really talk too much on it. But, like, especially if you're awkward, this is your social crutch. You're on this to avoid people. Yes. And as you get comfortable with people, usually that kind of does tend to, you know, move away.
And that's
absolutely,
it's an interesting point too, because a lot of the interactions, they primarily use like Instagram for her social media.
Right.
But like most of what she does on Instagram is interact with people she doesn't interact with in real life. Just she'll like a picture, maybe comment on it, but she would never talk to these people in person.
Right. And it's a weird thing because like people do that. I mean, I don't do it as much. I've been trying to be more active in certain channels of social media because it dawned on me that you can't just do one thing and then expect people to be receptive of your presence on social media.
Thanks for the sub, Any Patriots 25.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. This is a really great film. I don't know.
You see how much discussion it's brought out just right now.
Yeah, it's a really good film. I think Bo Burnham outdid himself. I think this is a film that could only have come from like a younger generation. And Bo is right there. You know, we're finally getting to this point where a lot of these creators are literally just coming from YouTube. They were making stuff in their rooms and now they're on the big screen, you know.
I think people we need to be in filmmaking instead of just people that are like, you kids don't work for anything, you're always on your phone, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Now they're going to make movies about people who say that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I can't recommend it enough. I know I don't have to convince Brandon. I don't think I would have to convince Paul either.
No, it's just a matter of waiting for it to be available. I'm really disappointed that this isn't available anywhere nearby.
Yeah,
at least to my knowledge.
Well, when it comes out on Blu-ray, we'll buy the Blu-ray and we'll.
Yeah, this is probably easily like in my top 5 of the year right now.
That's promising.
It's so good. I'm hesitant to say that it's a 10 out of 10, just because like that's a really bold claim. You know, I think it easily is a 9. It's top tier. It's top tier. This is good stuff. It's also just different. Like there's not a lot of movies that feel like this movie, at least not ones that I've seen. So maybe there definitely are inspirations. I'm just not sure what they are. I'd love to hear Bo Burnham talk about more of his inspirations, specifically other films that he had in mind when he was making it, and how he not just took inspiration from that, but he took that inspiration and transformed it into something original.
With that, we'll move on to the anime segment, and if you know me, you probably know what I watched this week. But before I say what I watched, Paul, where are you at in Boruto?
I just caught up.
So you're up to date now?
Yeah, I think I was right before episode 66 after the last show. And so I watched the end of the movie arc, and then I watched the first 2 episodes of this next arc.
Okay. So just give me some opinions right now.
So overall, like, I don't feel like the movie arc as a whole was as good as the movie, because I liked it, that nice, tight, here-to-here movement through it. But that final fight scene was, like, so good. It was unbelievable.
Did you notice that they completely redesigned the character in his final form?
I didn't notice
it's
that.
not the same design at all as the movie. In fact, it makes the movie's design look terrible by comparison.
I actually wanted to go back and watch the movie after I got done just to like
That's
compare the two.
hysterical.
But like, in the movie, I want to say like Naruto and Sasuke fought him with the Nine Tails Amaterasu combo at the tuning exams, didn't they?
And again during the fight at the end.
It felt like they combined those two fights and then just made them even better.
Well, they don't really fight during the tuning exams. They just kind of use it as defense and don't fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Both
Well,
in the anime and in the movie. So there's no fight that takes place there, essentially.
Yeah. But I feel like they were saving their budget for just that one episode. Like this whole arc has just been like, we're waiting for this moment, and then we're going to unleash the top-tier animation.
I don't think you should forget the fact that a lot of the extra content that was in the arc was actually being used to further development of characters for future arcs. Like Gaara's son, Shinki. We're not done with Shinki yet. Like, they are laying the groundwork for that character to come back in a bigger way.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised when, like, Boruto versus, what is Shikamaru's son's name?
Shikadai.
Shikadai. When that didn't end like the movie, I'm like, wow, this is still going. Okay.
Okay, I need to type into Google real quick. How to talk about Boruto.
Chakra
I'm like
natures.
every time you guys talk about Boruto, I'm like always silent, and I was like, I wonder if there's anything I can actually add that's constructive, and I'm like, I don't.
You're like
don't know what I'm
Andre
talking
in the
about. It's
Game
all just
Explained
memes.
podcast whenever they talk about Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but I think it's great. I love listening and watching people be excited about stuff.
Logan,
And then I love hearing you guys just like, I mean, this the simple fact that they changed the design. Like, you don't need to understand anything about, the show or the IP to understand that. What? Like, that seems a little bit odd. And now I'm really curious. I want to see like the difference between the two,
It's staggering.
So
Yeah, Logan, we realized that you like shonen, right?
right.
You should watch Naruto.
I know, but it's like, okay, I'm already watching JoJo. Like in JoJo, like I'm so way through JoJo. And like once I finish JoJo, I know I'm not gonna go to Naruto. Like
Wow.
that's not gonna, and it's nothing against Naruto, but there's so much of it.
Then
That
go back
it's
to
like-
Yu Yu Hakusho at least. Come on, man.
Like, Yu Yu Hakusho. I did start watching Yu Yu Hakusho.
I remember.
That might be.
I was waiting for you to continue.
there's a
and then you
reason-
never did.
There's a reason, like, we've been watching Naruto for, like, the last 15 or 16 years. That's because
Right.
there's 15 or 16 years
We're
worth
not
of content.
old.
Right.
So if you don't want to watch Naruto, that's completely understandable. Just in the same way I don't want to start One Piece.
It was like, I think it was after post Rogers based stream. We were having discussions and we just having a bunch of good conversation. And I mentioned that I'd commented in his Discord about One Piece, and people were like, "You should start it." And he was like, "Don't do it, don't do it. I love One Piece, but don't do it, don't do it."
I mean, if it was done, like
Right, and that's
maybe,
the other
but
thing is
the
like One
fact
Piece is
that-
ongoing. It's like
the fact that they're still like there's a large percentage of it left.
20%
Even now.
according to Oda, I think.
That is a lot considering how long it's been running.
Yeah.
that's insane.
At least with like Naruto, I feel like it was a good length. It was long enough that like you really become attached to these characters, you grow up with them, and now we're able, like, Boruto hits a lot closer to home because we've been watching Naruto since we were in like 5th grade. We
I
literally
started-
grew up watching Naruto.
I started a year
in 5th
after
grade.
Paul. And I
Oh,
caught
wow.
up. Yeah,
You caught
It didn't
up.
take long.
well, the thing is, like, they were airing the Saturday night episodes, and I just happened to tune in on the episode where Naruto fights Kiba. And up to that point, that's really the first time Naruto's really in a battle, and he means something, Like, he's part of the fight.
First time he's not a complete loser.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, oh, man, this is great. And then right after that, they started airing Naruto weekdays on a mid-afternoon block on Cartoon Network. it would be available as soon as I got home from school. So I was like, this is fantastic. I'll be able to catch up 5 episodes a week. Huh?
Dude, I remember like having rituals as a kid, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people had, at least that grew up in our age bracket, we grew up with like Saturday morning cartoons, right? And I don't
Well, it
think
was
those are quite as
kindergarten on.
prevalent
You get
anymore.
home, you watch Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, Naruto
Right.
filled
Well-
that gap for me.
Yu Yu Hakusho is also in that like same bracket, like same time block. So I end up watching after Dragon Ball Z the Yu Yu Hakusho, and that's why I also love that series so much, because that was my childhood.
Yeah, and to go back to what Paul said about how much these characters mean after spending, you know, better part of my life with them, I remember like when Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 or Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 came out. It's the last game in the series. It's, you know, it covers the end of the manga, and I mean, for those of you who've watched Naruto or have read Naruto, you know how incredible those last few pages of the second to last chapter are.
I cried.
The game made me like an emotional nightmare.
The third game, there's the scene with his mom. That made me a wreck. How many times have you seen Boruto, and how many times have you cried with that movie plot? I've experienced it 4 times, and I think I've cried like 6 times because I've watched that movie 3 times besides the first one.
I shouldn't like sugarcoat this. Like when I was experiencing the end of Naruto, you know, through the video game, they did some very deliberate design things with the final fight in the game that are incredibly impactful. Like when a character punches another character, they don't lose life on their life bar. Their life bar starts to disintegrate. It was fantastic. And by the time it was over, like, I think I cried harder than I've ever cried in my life. It was an emotional experience for me.
That was the first time I had seen that like animated, because I didn't watch the anime. So it was
The anime wasn't done yet.
It was hard. I still haven't seen the anime version of it. So I mean, regardless.
Well, let's fast forward 15 years to Boruto. And like you said, you know, movie arc ended a couple weeks ago, but now we're at what is probably a filler arc. It's a cute one, but so far, you know, not a lot happening. Seems like it could go almost 4 or 5 episodes. I think it might end tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next week or the week after.
I'd say 1 or 2 more episodes. I feel like we're actually a pretty good chunk into it.
Yeah, I think it's for one, it's approaching a very interesting subject matter, one that Naruto's actually touched on several times in the past, and that's body image.
Well, I mean, look at who her dad is.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and they're
My favorite
utilizing
character.
They're utilizing an ability from a very, very popular fight in the first part of Naruto that kind of plays into that body image. So it's all coming together really well, I think. And the episode from this week especially, there was a line that the actor character says to Chocho that just made me want to lay him out real hard. Basically, it comes to him saying, like, I could never be attracted to somebody with your body type. And this is someone she really looks up to. And it hit home for me. I was like, man.
Yikes.
It was brutal.
It was,
But
yeah, it
even
was.
if that's true, why say it? Not like that.
Yeah, he was very deliberate in making sure she knew. He went up to her ear and he whispered it to her.
It's a good thing he said that to his bodyguard. Well, have fun dying.
That said, this is once again, this is probably a filler arc and might be a few weeks before we get back to the main story. Once again, just sitting at this point in the Naruto timeline, I've been here for 2 or 3 years now, and I just want to know what happens next.
At least we got to the point where he's, actually a ninja, and we got through the movie arc, and now we can actually go somewhere.
He's not a poopy head anymore.
It's kind of weird because they made him a poopy head for the movie arc because he was a poopy head in the movie. That's what it felt like. It felt like they just last second, oh hey, you're gonna be a turd now.
Well, I mean, they played up to it. Like, all of
Yeah.
that focus is on Naruto, and it's amplified during that segment because of what happens with Himawari's birthday party.
Well, I think it starts with his birthday.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So I don't think it's like... It's not left field, necessarily, but it is stark.
Well, it's weird because they, for the most part, like, he is a person of character. And they established that fairly well. And though for him to go as far as he does, like, it didn't quite line up for me like it did in the movie. In the movie, like, it made sense because they start him here, and that's all you see of him.
Yeah.
Where you have that bits before that and how much he cares for his friends and whatnot, to see him do anything that would potentially hurt anyone just doesn't make as much sense to me.
Well, I mean, it's that journey seeking his father's acceptance and just to be noticed. There's plenty of parts in like the early 13, 26 episodes where you see Naruto blatantly ignoring his son on issues, and he doesn't take well to that. So the buildup is there, but the jump is pretty high.
Yeah.
Dream Drop says, "Don't mention the birthday party." I'm mentioning the birthday party. But that's not the only anime we watched this week. At least I hope. I caught up with last week's episode of My Hero, as well as, this week's episode of My Hero Academia.
I watched last week's. I haven't watched this past week's, though.
Dang it.
So,
well, we can talk about last week's.
Wait. Was that last week's? Maybe I'm 2 weeks behind.
Oh, no.
Because they keep adding them.
Did they start the exam?
Yes.
Then that was last week's.
Okay. So I'm not that far behind.
So we know shonen and tournament arcs are very closely wound together because of, Toriyama kind of kickstarting that. There might have been more.
Well, you have a tournament in your shonen and you get butts and seats.
Yeah. So this is now the second time we've had one of those in My Hero Academia, and it's just as hype as it always is. I'm pretty excited to see all the new quirks from all the other schools. And they're having a lot of fun with that so far, at least in the most current episode. We'll talk more about that once Logan catches up.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see how, like, Midoriya's abilities evolve, right? Because we just had this big shift in, oh, man, my friggin' fists kind of suck. And for the longest time, every time he would damage his arms, I was like, this is really depressing. Because this is like somebody just keeps abusing themselves, and then eventually they can't do what they need to do. But then they had this pivot, and it ended up being like this huge kind of blessing, because he was able to differentiate himself from, his predecessor.
And to quit breaking his fingers.
Yeah, legs are a lot stronger. So I feel like Deku's going to end up being like even more powerful. Well, he is going to be more powerful than All Might. That's the whole idea behind, One for All.
You thought that All Might was fast. Wait till you see Midoriya.
I like that Midoriya's scars from those days became a permanent part of his body. They're part of his character design now, and that's pretty great.
And it's bold because it's I don't know, it's daunting and it's scary to think that and this happens in real life. People do things to themselves and they experience permanent damage. Some people abuse their voices and then they ruin their voices for whatever reason. That's scary for me, somebody who likes to talk a lot and also is a vocalist, though I've never done anything terrible to my voice, and I treat it fairly well and I sing fairly well. Healthily, that's the word, I guess. But yeah, so I mean, I just see that and I think about my voice, and then I just think about his arms, or even just using your hands to play games. Like, what if all of a sudden, like, you couldn't use your hands? And in this case, it's like, well, I can't keep using my arms, or I just won't be able to use my arms. So I'm going to use my legs. And all of a sudden, I was like, he was like recognizing his limitations, and then figuring out how to overcome them. I need to
going back to that last tournament. That just made my hands hurt. Okay, like, he just needs to never do that again.
The purple floppy hand,
and he just kept doing it.
I mean, his hands were beyond repair. he might as well just keep doing it. Like, there's no going back anymore.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest like moments where I was like, I can't believe he did it to himself, but I'm also like, I'm impressed, was when it was it was like the summer school arc or whatever. They had the summer camp whatever, where they were, you know, just thrown into this forest and like, okay, guys, like deal with whatever comes your way. And then, you know, obviously all the villains come, and then he fights the one really, really strong villain, and he goes,
plus ultra and beyond.
Plus ultra times a million. I'm like, oh, what's happening? And then his whole arm is just like this, and he's just running off of pure adrenaline.
He went from like Detroit Smash to North American Smash.
United States of Smash.
Yeah.
Planet Earth Smash is next.
Good God.
So yeah, that's pretty much My Hero Academia. Did either of you guys watch any more anime?
I watched JoJo.
Sure, Steins Gate Zero.
Go ahead, Paul. Talk about Steins Gate Zero.
Why? So you can tell me it's a bad show?
No, so you can continually try to convince us to prioritize it. Because I imagine we'll get around to Steins Gate eventually.
Well, where I'm currently at with Steins Gate is watch Steins Gate. I still don't know about Steins Gate Zero. I haven't gotten to the point where, like, they really start to explain what the heck's even going on.
Can you reiterate again what the difference between the two shows is? What is Steins Gate Zero exactly compared to the original show?
So there are these world lines. And the main character is the only person that can move between the different world lines and remember.
So there's different like timelines, different like realities of sorts?
Yeah. Okay. So all the different choices and whatnot create different world lines, and he's able to kind of move between them and remember all the ones he's been to.
Right.
In Steins Gate Zero, it's basically the events of the first season, but he's on a completely different world line. So there's like an alpha world line, and for the most part, like, the world lines remain the same. So you can make small tweaks, but you're not really moving away from like major events.
Right.
And so if he was on like the alpha world line for Steins Gate, in Steins Gate Zero, he's on the beta world line.
Okay.
He makes a very drastic change to move world lines to avoid the consequences that were coming to him in the first season.
Right. So is it positioned as a successor to Steins Gate, or a retelling of sorts?
I'd say a retelling of sorts, or like an alternate timeline.
Steins Gate is a visual novel, right?
Yes.
Well, that's what.
And it's coming to the Nintendo Switch.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's
got delayed. I couldn't wait for it. It got delayed. I think originally it was supposed to come out like September, and so I just bought it on Steam on sale.
Right. Okay.
But so far, like, I'm waiting for Steins Gate Zero to kind of explain like what is the deal with this world line and where you're going with this. And it took a while in the original, but like after a certain point, you start to realize like, hey, this is what's up. Where this one just kind of, I think it's like 16 episodes in, and I still have no idea what the heck's going on. And so maybe watch Steins Gate, and I'll let you guys know if Steins Gate Zero is worth it when it's done.
Good.
It's kind of sad.
I mean, it might all make sense when I actually get to the end. It's just right now, it's really confusing.
Dreamdrop says the Switch version's cutscenes are scenes from the anime.
Ooh.
That's kind of cool.
Anime cutscenes.
Logan, you delved more into JoJo.
Yeah, so my JoJo consumption has definitely slowed down, and I think I'm okay with that because I'm more invested in each individual episode. The second season is a lot longer than the first season, and I think maybe so. The first arc is like 9 episodes. And then, like, the second arc is, like, another 9, 10, 13 episodes. So I think it rounds out at 20 episodes, maybe 22 episodes for the first season, first 2 arcs. The second season, which so far I'm still on the same arc. We're like 31, 32 episodes in, and it's all the same characters, and they're still. I love this arc so much because of the stands. And this episode, the last episode I watched, the stand user, she can turn somebody's body into a giant magnet. So it's really funny because at the beginning of the episode, there's this whole scene where they're in the desert and Joseph Joestar, JoJo from the second arc, an older man at this point, he goes and he finds this, he goes to poop, right? And he finds this outhouse, and it's just
that's always a great plot point though. Like
right.
Poop. I'll take it.
I'm not even sure if it was of any significance except for the fact that he had to poop.
It doesn't have to be. He had to poop. That's what's important.
Right. He had to poop, and he goes into this outhouse, and it's not like a big hole. There's no like toilet paper or anything, and he just kind of watches, like there's this little kind of just like bowl that's been dug into the dirt, into the sand, you know, because they're in the desert, and there's just like some poo sitting in there,
organic.
And all of a sudden the wind comes and one of the pieces of poo starts to fall apart and then just like evaporates. And he goes on to explain or try to explain to himself verbally, oh wow, there's not even water, it just, that's how the wind takes the poo away, and then there's like a bucket of like sand, and he goes, I'll wait until we get to the hotel. And then he touches a rock that has an outlet on it. He's like, why is there an outlet? I'm like, don't touch the outlet, it's in a rock. You're asking yourself why there is an outlet in a rock, and you're having to deal with all these weird zany people, and then you're gonna touch it? Of course he's gonna touch it because plot points, but you know, sitting right there, it's like, no, Joseph Joestar, don't touch that outlet. Don't touch that outlet for your own good. Guess what? He touched the outlet.
Did his cell phone charge?
And then he turned into a magnet. Not right away. Like it started out just like he felt
charged.
Weird.
Okay.
And then like the next morning he wakes up and like his body. Oh, I didn't even get this until now. Oh, that's so funny.
When Logan realizes the joke mid-episode.
Dude, no. Yeah. So he starts to have like metal things stick to him. And one of the other characters, Avdol, he's like expresses to Joseph that, hey man, you're a really weird sleeper. Like you were facing south, and now in the morning you're facing north. Because he's a magnet. Because he's a magnet now. That's so funny.
10 out of 10.
So funny. And then he gets up and he's got like Coke bottle tops like all on him, just like scattered about. He's walking, and then at a certain point, like he walks past like a tray of utensils, and all of a sudden knives start flying at him. And then what happens is it ramps up, so he gets more magnetic as time goes on. And so at a certain point, he's like walking past some ladies, and they have like metal like pins or something like lining the bottom of their dress. And so all of a sudden, like her skirt goes up, and he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't realize he's magnetic. And then he gets punched because he's a perv. And then the same thing happens with a much older lady, and then she has like the exact opposite reaction. She's like, you're just my type. And it's so funny. It's so funny. And then he gets on like the escalator because he's like, these knives are chasing him, and he gets stuck to the escalator. And then it turns out the stand user is right in front of him. And
thank you, Aisha, for the subscription.
Yeah, just great episode. JoJo's got a lot of great humor. This show's so funny. The new opening theme for this half of the season, also very good. I really dig it. You guys should watch JoJo. I'll watch Steins Gate. Steins Gate if you watch JoJo. I guess
that's what I've been waiting to hear.
I shouldn't give ultimatums.
You're
I should
bargaining.
just watch Steins Gates because it's supposed to be
If
good.
you
and
watch
should
my
just watch
anime,
JoJo
I'll
because
watch
it's
your
really
anime.
good. We don't owe each other anything.
Good anime.
We recommend good anime because it's good anime, right? And that's the takeaway. You don't need to make deals with anybody. Just prioritize your time, and watch JoJo before you watch Steins Gate.
Wow.
We have some games to talk about, though.
Yeah, we do.
So if you're watching us over the weekend, we streamed Overcooked 2, and that was a good time. Lots of hostility amongst mostly the two of you. Which made it doubly fun for me, because I got to just be a bystander to all of that.
I mean, it's part of the
charm.
It's part of the charm. I mean, you do this when you play Mario Party or Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. Sometimes you just you pump it up a little bit, not because that's how you really feel, but it's fun. It's fun to like be over dramatic about it, and that's exactly what happened.
If it was Smash Brothers, they would have all been directed at you. So.
So yeah, highly recommend that game. $25 on the Switch eShop, also available on other platforms. Full online multiplayer support this time around, so if you don't have any friends nearby, this is a great buy. Just a lot of fun.
If you don't have any friends nearby, join our Discord. You'll find other people that have Overcooked 2, and you can play with them.
Yay! Community!
Link in the description.
Logan, something you and I did over the weekend, we played some Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, we
We
got our butts handed to us.
Yeah, we did. We started.
Not good. Oh man.
We started the Final Fantasy 14 Behemoth quest line, and I didn't realize this, but that line opens with a quest against a Kuluyaku, which finds a crystal and starts to grow. And it grows.
And it continually grows throughout the quest.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 instances where Kuluyaku just gets bigger. And everyone's like, Nani?
Yeah, if you want to get a record Kuluyaku, play that quest.
This is easy gold Kulu. There's also some Cactar enemies from Final Fantasy obtainable as pets, which is really awesome.
Whoa.
They're out in the desert now. And after you do that, you unlock the first part of the Behemoth quest, which is a repel quest, which Logan, you and I, and and our friend Levi, we had no trouble taking down the repel version of the quest. And then we did the real version of the Behemoth.
Yeah, you realize there are like 3 or 4 more like stages to that quest or something like that, and they just get progressively like more difficult.
They're going easy on you.
Especially that, I think it was the second stage.
The second is really hard.
Yeah, because then like, if you aren't... So what you have to do is you have to draw his enmity. You have to gain enmity, and that means he targets one person. And the reason you do that is because when you gain that enmity, he doesn't use certain moves, which can be very, very bothersome and can really screw you over. So it's better for him just to be chasing down one person.
That's the meta.
Right. And you really, you have to do it, and you gain enmity by hitting his head enough, right?
You can also gain enmity by blocking too many of his attacks.
So that's why you got enmity all the time, right?
Yeah, so like our setup is I was playing Charge Blade, you were doing Switch Axe, and Levi was Hunting Horn. I was the only player that could realistically hit his head frequently.
Right.
And ultimately, I think our team comp might have been working against us because we couldn't hit him in the head, and I was the only one that could block his attacks.
Well, I can hit him in the head. I mean, there's a lot of vertical high attacks with the what you call it, but I was still getting used to him. Right,
he's big,
and a lot of times. So I think by the 3rd time we were doing it, I was definitely hitting his head pretty consistently. We were kind of getting the meta down, and I think we just needed to kind of sleep on it. And I think that's so important. I think I cannot stress enough that people should just like stop doing things and sleep sometimes. Right.
This was also the early afternoon.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, but here now we've slept on it, and we have all this understanding, so we need to go back to it. It doesn't matter the time of day. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't.
So you took
I'm
a
not
nap,
even talking about.
came back to it, destroyed it.
Well, I'm not even talking about being well rested. What I'm talking about is how the brain and sleep functions. As I understand sleep functionality, like the functionality of sleep, is literally there will be people who will try to do something, right? And maybe they practice things again and again and again and again, and they do it like for hours on end or something like that. Hyperbole. But maybe you do. You do it hours on end, you can't get it, but you practice it a lot. So maybe I'm trying to learn a piano piece, and there are reports of people not being able to do it, then sleeping on it, coming back in the morning and being able to do it perfectly. Because that's how sleep functions. It's like you're learning in your sleep. And so in a similar way, like I want to go back to it now that we've had a night's rest and we've had time to think about it and rest on it, because I guarantee if we get another person in there and then really just keep communicating, we could totally do it.
Oh yeah, by the end of that third one, I could see the end of the hunt in sight. I was like, okay, we've got this now.
So we definitely need to I just need to play more Monster Hunter. And we should go.
We should also mention just how good of a crossover quest the Behemoth is, and how much they actually draw from Final Fantasy. Like when the quest starts, rather than saying beginning quests or whatever, it says duty commenced in the exact font from Final Fantasy 14.
Duty.
Yeah, and then also like even like the damage numbers. Yeah, like if you do like a special, like when there's a combo that you do with the switch axe with the sword, that it's like the heavenward flurry or something like that. And when I would do that, the text heavenly flurry or heavenward flurry would appear on the screen.
Yeah, like if you do a special attack, the game will tell you what attack you're casting.
Yeah, it's just a really great quest, and it's really intricate, which makes it interesting, and it's also very difficult, which makes it that much more interesting, because again, like I think up until we got to like maybe Tempered Devil Joe, I didn't fail a lot of quests,
No, I would even say Tempered Devil Joe's a breeze, personally.
Well, yeah, it also depends on who you're playing with. Like if I was playing with you guys, then of course, because we'd be communicating and you guys are hunters, experienced hunters. But I tried to do like Tempered Joe with like randos. Nope.
This was a bad time.
Bad time.
So yeah, the thing about Behemoth that I guess even further than just how cool the quest it is that makes me excited, is it's that first time I felt actively challenged by the game. Like, as a Monster Hunter veteran, this is a monster that is intimidating to me for the first time. So I look forward to more of this kind of content coming to the game in the coming months, because this is the kind of stuff that caters to me as a player, someone who's been playing Monster Hunter long enough to, I knew the ropes going into World. Even with all the new stuff, the game was a breeze.
Right.
So this is the kind of stuff I need.
I can't believe we're getting so much just free content. Like, I mean, this is essentially like the replacement for the G rank. Right? Well, not the G rank, the ultimate version of the game, which I imagine will come at some point. They'll just rebrand it, and it might not even, the price might not even change. They might just rebrand it as on the store shelves.
They went from tempered monsters to arch-tempered monsters, which I haven't even fought one yet.
No, I haven't either. I was actually just thinking about this. The ultimate version of the Monster Hunter games is, I would say, in a way, you could compare that to like No Man's Sky next. Yeah. Or also there's a VR MMO that has a pretty healthy user base called Orbis VR. And they are also doing an overhaul that's coming out like first quarter, like next year. It's getting a visual overhaul. There's getting a lot of extra features. I love this age of gaming. Like you can have a really solid base game, and then as these developers start to take in, revenue, then they're able to reinvest it into the game that people are still playing. and makes the game that much better. And that's obviously what's happening with some of these bigger games, which is kind of it's just games as a service is just such a standard now. And I don't think we should hold every game to that standard, but I think for some games, like, that's the best way to go. Games as a service. Just give us more free content, maybe some paid content down the line. And obviously, Monster Hunter World has, extra paid content, which is definitely reasonable. It's gestures and just cosmetic stuff, which is really good, as opposed to something like Dragon Ball Fighter Z, where they keep out Goku and Vegeta base forms
for $35,
which I just found out. That's a thing. You have like the blue. You have blue and Super Saiyan, right? Mm-hmm. And then you don't have
really base form.
You don't get base forms.
And it'd be understandable to say like, oh, we're gonna buy extra characters, these more zany characters off the wall, but those aren't the ones who sell. So this is just like, it's a cash grab. That's really cheap.
That said, Goku and Vegeta's base forms are entirely different characters in terms of their moveset, their animations, everything that it draws from.
Right.
So there's value there. It's just it's very weird, I would say.
How much is the base game? Is it full 60?
$60 at launch, at least. I don't know if it still is. And $35 for 8 characters. This is not
That's steep.
Bad, but not great.
That's steep. I can get value other way. And I maybe that's one of the reasons why isn't on my top priority list. Even
that
though
didn't
I know
stop
it's
the
one
game
of the more...
from being the #1 fighting game in the world.
No, I mean, I was just going to say that. I mean, it's extremely popular and extremely well received. I've heard nothing. I mean,
it was the biggest game at Evo.
If the only complaint I can have about the game is that they have a few shady monetization practices, but even then, like, the base game, it's not like it's lacking in content,
Not at all.
So if that's my only complaint, I mean, oh well, maybe I would like to pick this game up down the line. Maybe a complete version.
If we ever get one. Like, the character rollout's been relatively slow.
Right.
There's still a few more to come, as far as I know. But that said, we were talking about Monster Hunter World. If you've not ever played a Monster Hunter game before, also, Paul, play the DLC.
Eventually I will, if I ever have time.
If you never played Monster Hunter, please try out Monster Hunter World.
It's the best starting point. I mean, you'd even have a better time like starting with Monster Hunter World and then going to like Generations Ultimate
after the fact.
Switch.
Yeah. If you've played a Monster Hunter game before, Generations Ultimate's coming out, and you can expect some content from us from that.
Yeah, definitely.
We like Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter World's one of the best games that's released this year, and more people need to know. I'm talking directly to you, Dream Drop.
I mean, that being said, it's not like, I mean, this is the best-selling Monster Hunter game, and also just the best-selling Capcom game ever. So, the fact that it's been so well received is great. I wonder what the sales are like in the West.
Overhyped.
Not overhyped. It definitely there's room for growth.
But I'll talk about my highlight of the week, and that was actually just yesterday. Michaela and I played Secret of Mana, which is a Super Nintendo game developed by Square, an RPG, spin-off of the Final Fantasy series. This is actually the second in that series of spin-offs. In Japan, I think it's Seiken Densetsu, but here we know it as Secret of Mana. And Secret of Mana is a 3-player action RPG on the Super Nintendo with an expansive overworld similar to that of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. And I didn't really know much about this going in. The only thing I knew is that it was a 3-player game. So I asked Michaela if she wanted to play. I turned it on, started playing. Half an hour later, I finally got a second person in my party so she could start playing. All she had to do was hit start, and she was controlling the other character.
Oh, that's great.
This game is incredibly inventive for being as old as it is. There's a surprising amount of animations I saw, because like there's evade stats and stuff like that, and your character will auto evade an attack, you know, if the value checks out. And they'll do backflips, or they'll like jump to the side and stuff, and just stuff you wouldn't expect from a Super Nintendo game that's using a top-down, a Link to the Past perspective. But it's a really good multiplayer game, just a great bonding experience. I'm the melee fighter, I'm the main character, and Michaela is using a character who has access to magic, and
She's the mage.
All of her magic attacks are like, you know, damage dealing. She's the heavy hitter of the two of us. So like I go in there and I do the big melee damage, but she's off to the side like doing crazy attacks worth so much damage. She's really just carrying me.
Yeah.
And then we have a third character who's obviously, you know, like a healer type.
Right.
But there's a vast array of weapon classes, and all three characters can use any of them.
Oh.
They have different attacks, different attack animations. Some of them are long range. Like there's a bow, there's a boomerang, which you upgrade into a pair of chakram, which is pretty cool. There's a whip, javelin, sword, axe, all kinds of weapons. So there's like a lot of customization to this game. You find orbs related to each weapon. You give them to a blacksmith, and he'll upgrade them for 1 orb each. So like your weapon will constantly transform into a new weapon that's more powerful. The more you use your weapon, the higher like skill your character will get with using that weapon type. It'll level up. It'll actually give you access to higher level charge attacks. There's a lot going on in this really old Super Nintendo game from like 1997.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's just RPGs, right?
Yeah, but this was an action RPG.
Oh, okay.
So it's not turn-based. It's all real-time.
Right.
Ooh.
That's interesting. That actually makes me even more interested. And you know, having the SNES Classic, man, there's so many games like I've been meaning to jump into. I mean, that's definitely one of them. Obviously, ever since the Direct, I've been really like, man, I should play Super Castlevania on my SNES Classic.
That was actually my plan for tonight.
Yeah.
So Secret of Mana had a remake on PlayStation 4 that I heard was maybe not great. So maybe don't play that version. To answer Dream Drop's question, the game did support 3 players on the Super Nintendo using the multi-tap, allowing you to plug in 3 controllers.
Can you plug in?
It is only 2 players on the SNES Classic.
Right.
Dang.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Unless they were able to make a multi-tap.
If it's even like burned into the emulation that you could even do it.
Right. And that's the other question is like, would you be able to communicate? And it's not like they could, you know, do an update, because that's not how the SNES Classic works.
If I have any like criticisms of Secret of Mana, it's that the beginning of the game is infinitely more difficult than the rest of it. You don't unlock the ability to use magic for a couple hours into the game, and magic is like the cornerstone of your strategy. You know, it's your strongest attacks. It's the way you can heal yourself without burning items. You heal yourself with candy, and you can only have 5 candy in your inventory at any given time. And that's not a lot. So having that magic and ability to constantly heal yourself is really important. So if you try this game out and you find yourself getting your butt kicked right at the beginning, that's just the way it is, and you got to get over that hump. Luckily, the SNES Classic has the ability to use save states. So it's a lot easier to get through difficult stuff like that.
Yeah, I tend not to... I discourage anybody from abusing save states, but if it allows you to progress through a game and have an experience that you wouldn't be able to have otherwise, then I think it's perfectly acceptable.
When you die in Secret of Mana, it respawns you at the last time you saved, and you cannot save on command.
Yeah, then in that case, that seems pretty justified. I mean, things like I won't abuse it for is I definitely abused it for Donkey Kong Country, because that game can be pretty punishing. Like if you get like 5 or 6, you know, levels in, and then you can't go back to like get a save state. Because like, you know, at certain points you'll gain access to to save stations where it's like, okay, I did this one, now I can go back and save, and then go to the next one, and then go back and save. But then sometimes you go over to another screen and you can't go back, and then you have to beat like 4 or 5 levels before you get to the next thing, and then you have to beat a boss, and if you don't have to beat the boss, you have to beat all those levels again. So I'm like, screw this, using save states. Like,
yeah, you can only save in towns at inns, and you can also save. Sometimes there'll be a Neko merchant, and if you run into a Neko merchant, you can usually save there. Those are the only 2 types of saves in the game, outside of like the occasional, you know, autosave from beating a dungeon or something. So
right.
The game's brutal. I'll say that. Like, you can get knocked unconscious mid-battle, and you just have to lay there while the enemy just takes free hits at you, and you can't do anything about it.
That's fun.
And as you get up,
favorite.
they can hit you again and knock you right back down. So if you're attacked by more than one enemy at a time, they can combo you 0 to death.
So this game was really built for that multiplayer aspect.
Yeah, I'd maybe not recommend this game as a single player experience. Play it with at least one other person.
Right.
But maybe get to the
in
point.
In this case, you only can play with one other person.
Yeah. I would recommend playing single player up to the point where you get another party member, and then invite a friend to play.
Somebody, right?
Because
or learn to control both people at once.
The first half an hour.
Hand. Let's go.
The first.
This will be a lot easier when we have own office and we're all in the same place because we're making enough money.
The first half an hour I was playing, Michaela was just having to watch because I hadn't gotten my second party member, and I didn't know at what point that was going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in that game, and I'm 8 hours deep. We played a long time yesterday. So
that's good.
I'm enjoying that a lot. Kind of accomplishing my goal of playing landmark titles from the 90s and early 2000s that I never got around to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my highlight of the week and what I've been playing.
Gotcha. So this week, after Overcooked 2, I decided to check out Semblance. I actually had enough like gold coins after buying Overcooked 2 to just get Semblance. This is a game, I want to say it's the first like South African developed game on a Nintendo platform.
Oh.
And so you play as a blob. You're a purple blob. The world gets kind of taken over by a green blob that turns things green. And green hurts you, I guess.
It's Splatoon.
Basically. The game, I think, like, if I have any complaints about it so far, like, it's kind of difficult to jump into because it doesn't really explain itself. But basically, you move around on the hub world to different trees, and you jump into the pink dot on the trees, and it takes you to a level. And there are pink dots, kind of moved throughout the level that you have to find before you warp back to the main hub world. So you collect these pink dots by solving these puzzles involving morphing the terrain. So if you dash at certain like splotches of purple, certain like purple blocks, you can actually move them. And so you can kind of shift them left and right, or if you hit underneath them, they will kind of morph around you and kind of build up. And so you do this, you shape the terrain to solve the problem. And so in that regard, it's actually a really interesting puzzle. And there's a handful of times so far that I'm like, I have no idea how to solve this. I'm coming back to this. And I moved on to a different tree.
It's nice that it gives you that kind of freedom.
Yeah, it's a really weird game. And like I said, it's hard to kind of just dive into it. Because they really need just a little bit more instruction. But once you kind of have like that base down and you know what you're supposed to be doing, like I had a blast just going from tree to tree and like solving all these different puzzles, morphing the world, being a blob, getting rid of that green.
Green.
Like some of the at some point, like I got introduced to like lasers that are sitting on like the purple blocks that you can adjust, and like you have to like push up at a certain point to angle them, and like this green laser can cancel out this green laser, but if they intersect, and so you can do that to jump over. It's very interesting. I look forward to seeing like what other kind of puzzles they can cook up later on, because I'm still in that early stuff, the easy stuff.
It's always fun to see puzzles and challenges evolve through games, and especially when you can kind of feel like you can quantify them, like you saw it coming, right?
Yeah.
But then you saw it coming, but you didn't necessarily anticipate the execution.
Kind of what the phrase "thinking with portals" kind of means, you know?
Yeah.
Specifically in the context of Portal, but that applies to all kinds of puzzle games.
Right, exactly.
It makes you feel smart. I'm the only person that could have figured this out besides all the other thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that played it. You know, they're not as smart as me. I got this. I'm the savior of this world. I am the purple goo hero. Yeah, well, Semblance. I'll get a little further and tell you guys more about it next week.
Oh, heck yeah, dude.
Logan, you were streaming earlier today.
Yeah, before I get to that, I'm gonna say that I played more Rocket League this week. People still suck at Rocket League. I played more No Man's Sky. I'm still having a lot of fun. No Man's Sky? I talked about the two of the other games I played, and then the last 2 days, including today, I have been streaming. Specifically, I've been streaming Half-Life 2. I've been playing through this game again because it's a great game. Really enjoyed it the first time. Man, I realized today how much I don't remember from that game. and it kind of just enforced the fact that I needed to play through this game again. Because it's got a lot of great things going for it. Though there are certain things that still kind of frustrate me. Like, for example, at a certain point, you get this like pheromone pod, and I totally forgot you get this. It's like one of the last items you get in the game, right? Because they kind of they drip feed you different weapons and tools and stuff like that, and then obviously they throw challenges at you based on what's available to you. So at a certain point, you have to go. You get in your little buggy, right? It's got like a weapon on it, and then you get to the end of that, and you go into this basement, and they lead you out this other place, and then you have to go on this beach. And the point is, you're not supposed to stand on the sand, because if you stand on the sand, the antlions attack. If you can keep from being on the sand, you never get attacked by antlions. But there are some pretty difficult jumps in there. You know, you do a little bit of platforming, and I would fall into the sand, and that was frustrating because all of a sudden you get 5 or 6 antlions coming at you, and you're trying to deal with them while also not falling back onto the sand on this little thing that you're just trying to like maintain yourself on. And then at the very end of that sequence, they reward you by giving you this pod. You defeat like a mama antlion, which is not called an antlion, it's called something else, but you get this pheromone pod. And so you can do 2 things with this pheromone pod. You can throw it, and wherever it lands, antlions go to, or you squeeze it and they come to you. So all of a sudden, antlions become an ally as opposed to an enemy.
Yeah, I saw that a little bit. I was tuning in to your stream earlier at some point where you were getting shot a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, that's weird. I just want to talk about like, okay, I'm streaming on my personal channel, because obviously we have certain rules that we've set in place for the Break Room Arcade, fully justifiable and really good rules in terms of just kind of keeping a lot of things out, right? Because it invites a certain type of mood when you're constantly cussing or you're saying crude things. I like to have a little bit more freedom. Not that I cuss like a ton on stream, except for certain high stress moments. And that was definitely one of the high stress moments. But once I got those, oh man, what a satisfying mechanic to be able to just throw a pod and then just kind of sit back. I would just literally just throw a pod. All these antlions would just come and they'd keep dying, and they'd kill one of these combine guys, And then I just sit there and start, commentating and talking about other things. I had a friend stop into the stream and we were talking about things. And the one frustrating thing about it is, though, you get into this building where you're using these ant lions and you get into these doorways and they're always in the way. Always in the way. I can't
noticed.
get anywhere. I was like, this is so frustrating.
You like killed one of them.
I killed one of them because they don't retaliate. At a certain point, I was like, I'm just gonna get out of my way. And not that I would treat animals like that in real life, but these are fictional.
Or your
alien...
henchmen.
Right. But just a great moment I got, and then I met up with the character of Alex Vance, and then that's when I was like, man, how cool would it be to have more people on like these podcasts? Like I loved talking to Roger, and just imagine all the other people that we could be inviting and having these conversations with. Obviously, we're having Sean on pretty soon. That's pretty big. We're having, a few other people who aren't big names, but they're people we know who are doing some really cool things that we want to talk about. And like, so my immediate thought was like, I want to have a conversation with the voice of Alex Vance, because the voice acting in that game is fantastic. Like 14 years later, that game has aged so well. Obviously, it shows its age in terms of its resolution and textures and stuff like that. But also, the textures they look decent for a 14-year-old game.
They look better than Twilight Princess.
Yeah, the facial animations are also still really solid. Like you can see on their faces what kind of emotion they're communicating, specifically with like the main characters, the characters that are most developed, not just random NPCs, right? I remember coming up on this one NPC and I was like, oh, I gotta save this guy. No. And then he was the one who explained, he says out loud, hey, stay off the sand, because that's how the antlions come after you. And then he died. I was like, thanks for your sacrifice. And then I ran off and died myself because I kept walking on the sand.
Your sacrifice was in vain.
But then I respawned because Gordon Freeman can't actually die.
Wow.
Because otherwise he wouldn't be able to win the game. So that was my week in gaming. I plan on streaming more regularly. Thankfully, that first day, I went ahead and I posted the stream and like the self promo channel in our Discord, which everybody should go. There's a link in the description for our Discord if you are not in our Discord already. And I was hesitant because one, I don't necessarily just want to use. I don't want to use the break room. I don't want to use the break. Obviously, reaching with people just because I'm associated, but I don't want to use my power. That's all right. But I have gained a few followers in the last few days, and I'm shooting for that young 15 followers here. 7 away. I'm over halfway there. I was at 3 when I started 2 days ago, and now I'm at 8. So thank you, Sandman and Santi Dream Drop, for dropping in the stream and chatting me up when that happened. And that was my week of gaming. Thank you.
That brings us to the close of another wonderful episode of the Breakdown Podcast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find me at Babababs. You can find Logan at LoggyDoves, or you can find Paul at Gunnysaurus. You can follow us as a collective at Breakroom Arcade. If you
as
want
an elective?
As a collective. If you want...
It sounded like you said elective.
As an elective. If you want to talk to us even more, there is a link to our Discord server in the description. We're in there pretty much 24/7, at least I am, so I will usually respond to you. If you message in there, it might just not be immediately, so just know that. We have a lot of fun in there. The server's growing, lots of fans, and lots of good discussions going on in there recently with the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Nintendo Direct that took place last week. if you really like what we're doing and, you know, you want to show your support, there's also a link to our Patreon page in the description. You can help us by donating as little as $1 a month. All the details and all the special goodies you get are on that page. We'd really appreciate it if you helped us out. And even if you don't, we're just glad you're here. So we love all of our fans equally. You guys are all fantastic. I think we're at 574 subscribers now.
Yep.
Numbers growing. And, you know, we blew past through 500 was it last week?
That was Sunday.
On Sunday, okay, so things have been moving. So I want to thank you guys so much for all the support you've been showing us recently. We've been growing a substantial amount, and we are looking forward to growing even more. Conman says, great show, guys. Been playing Pokemon trading card game with my girlfriend while listening. That's why I wasn't talking. Hey, man, it's a podcast. It's about listening, so.
Right, I was about to say, also, that sounds like a great alternative to commenting in the chat.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think you got your priority straight.
Dreamdrop says, you guys are awesome. So glad this channel is growing. Let's keep it going. Yes, we're on the road to 1,000. Interestingly, if you saw our Twitter page earlier, Social Blade predicts we'll hit 1,000 subscribers on December 7th, the day that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is supposed to release.
Is it fate?
Yeah, so
Probably.
maybe we'll have to have a little bit of a celebration with Super Smash Bros. But there is a chance. There's a chance we could hit it before then, because we're all hard-working individuals. We produce great content, and if we already produce great content, that means the content's just gonna get better. So hold on to your butts and get ready for that 1K subs.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to reaching those numbers. It's been an exciting journey for us over the last 6 months. This is episode 26, which means we're exactly halfway to a year's worth of episodes.
That works. When did that happen?
That's what I'm saying. You blink and we get this far, and here we are. Most podcasts don't make it past episode 7. Well, here we're at 26.
Yeah, we're kind of dedicated to this. Yeah, 2 podcasts, and we'll pass 7 here in a few weeks for Nintendo stuff as well. So that'll keep going, and yeah, we're busy, and it's amazing just how much you start to create, and you create with other people, and how it just picks up, and all of a sudden you go from doing absolutely nothing with your life to doing quite a bit. So all it takes is a little bit of effort.
What he's saying is we love you. Thank you for being here.
Logan, you've been working on a little bit of stuff too. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so I still am stuff on my personal channel. I just did an episode of a Reddit-based podcast with my brother, and we titled Reddit Origins, and that's over on my personal channel, Logan Daniel. I've been really struggling because I search for my own channel, right, to make sure that, okay, where am I at, how do I increase my reach and all this other stuff, and how do I change my branding, and that's really difficult. So it's really hard to find, but if you just search for my Twitter, you can find a lot of the information through there. And then also on my Twitch page, I just updated my Twitch page with links to all my social media, and my screen name on Twitch is almost the same. There's an underscore between Loggy and Dubs. And the reason that is because I had 2 Twitch accounts, and I just went over the other Twitch account, which is Loggy Dubs, and I changed the nickname, but that nickname won't be available in the pool of screen names on Twitch for another 6 months. So hopefully I'll change that on Twitch. And you can find me best if you just type in Loggy Dubs on Twitter, because I put it in all my tags. And that's intentional, because when you type in Loggy Dubs, it's weird because, one, it'll suggest, oh, did you mean like Loggy space subs? And I'm like, what the heck is this? It's some weird thing. But then you said search instead. I meant to search for Loggy Dubs because that's what I typed in YouTube. I typed in Loggy Dubs, and then all of my videos pop up. So there's that. And then I've also, I teased this the other day. I'm still working on this Red Dead video. Very excited for that game. I probably will be a lot more excited as time goes on. Obviously, we are in August, and we still got like a little over 2 months. Is it? Yeah, a little over 2 months until the game comes out October 26th. And I am almost done editing the video. My current goal is just to get into a habit of editing videos. I was saying to the boys before the show, do less. Okay? If you're trying to do anything and you're getting frustrated, you'll be less frustrated if you do less of it. But it's ironic a little bit. Because when you do less, you do it more often and you end up doing more.
I actually am very, very different from that personally. Like,
really?
If I don't work in bulk, you don't get anything at all.
So, and there are certain times, but here's what happens. So if I say my current goal is I want to edit for a solid 15 minutes minimum every day. So as long as I reach that goal, then I'm fine. But what happens a lot of the time is I end up staying I do half an hour, I do an hour, I do an hour and a half, right? But going into it, just my goal is that 15 minutes. It's a lot easier. I don't psych myself out, right? That I'm like, oh, I gotta spend so much time editing. No, just spend 15 minutes. And if you can spend 15 minutes and that's all you can do, and then you do 15 minutes the next day, 15 minutes the next day, 15 minutes, that's an hour, okay? Whereas a lot of the times people will procrastinate, at least people like me will procrastinate for weeks on end. They won't do anything. So if you can just do a little bit every day, that's better than doing nothing, right? So this is just me trying to figure it out. So yeah, that my other podcast on my personal channel, at Loggy Doves. Just search at Loggy Doves more on YouTube, because that'll help me out, right? And then share break room videos, share my videos, and I mean that's all I have to say.
I've got the second episode of Hyrule Diaries coming out this week. I'm going to try and release those on just a weekly basis going forward. So continue to look forward to that. Thank you so much if you watched the first episode. It's a show I'm very excited about. With all of that in mind, go follow us. Leave us a like on this video if you liked what you saw. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks to our new subscribers during the show today. And with all that in mind, don't break your backs. Break in the games. But for now, break time's over.